Dear students, I have started this YouTube channel just to help the students of biology that are unable to join the biology class on time because of one reason or the other. I will try to cover most of the topics that are included in the syllabus of biology part 1 and biology part 2 at the college level. Okay. And at present, I will try to record lectures that will not exceed 10 minutes so that it can become easy for you to understand the basic concepts of biology. And gradually, we will be going towards the completion of the syllabus. First of all, I am going to open up the presentation in which we will study the first topic of the biology book of biology part 2 of second year class 12. Okay. The first topic in this is the topic of respiration. Respiration is actually one of the main processes that is taking place in the human body. And the first process that we will be studying over here is actually the respiratory surface. The respiratory surface, this is a very important topic and you should expect a question in the respiratory surface. The respiratory system of man. I am Siva Mansoor, your teacher, and I will be trying to guide you people in biology and to try to give you the correct concepts of biology in a very, very easy and comfortable way. If you have any questions, if you want to learn any topic at all, then you can give me a message in the message box. You can drop a message for me in the video link so that I can read your messages and then I can answer your questions, or I can make a video on any topic that you are feeling confused in. You are having some difficulty in understanding. Okay, let us go to the topic now. Today, we will be discussing only the properties of an efficient respiratory surface. This is a very important short question in the exam. शॉर्ट क्वेश्चन आता है एग्जाम के अंदर और बहुत सारे बच्चों को ये लिखने में थोड़ा सा इससे प्रॉब्लम आता है कि इट हैज मेन 5 जो है प्रॉपर्टीज एंड यू जस्ट मिस आउट वन ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी एंड देन यू कैन नॉट गेन फुल मार्क्स. ठीक है, in this what we are going to see, first of all we will see what a respiratory surface is. Then I will tell you a brief definition of the respiratory surface, which I have made up myself. I haven't used any book or any Google source. I have made up a respiratory surface definition in a very easy way so that it can become easy for you. You can make up your own definitions also, just according to your own understanding. Then I will tell you some common examples of respiratory surfaces. And then we will discuss what respiratory gases are. Okay. First of all, before starting the presentation, let us go to the board and let me open the whiteboard and let us discuss something on the whiteboard. Now, a respiratory surface, actually what a respiratory surface is. A respiratory surface actually is any surface of a living body which is exposed to the external environment. We can say that this is the external environment. This is the external environment, and on the other side is the living body. Okay, the environment of the organism. This is the living system through which the exchange is going to take place and going to come in. We have for what the exchange is important. Now, this surface is the surface that is separating the external environment and the living system. Now, if this surface, it allows the entry of respiratory gases. What are respiratory gases? Respiratory gases are actually only oxygen and carbon dioxide, because these are the main 2 gases that are used in the that are observed in the metabolism of humans and any other organisms, all the aerobic organisms. These gases, oxygen is used to run the metabolic processes. It is used to run the metabolic processes, and carbon dioxide is a product of the metabolic processes. So these 2 gases are the gases that are running in the respiratory system of man. One is essential, one is the raw material, and one is the byproduct. What we are going to see now is that we are going to study about this respiratory surface. We have various respiratory surfaces in organisms, many examples of respiratory surfaces in organisms, depending upon the habitat, depending upon the body form, depending upon the structure, depending upon the arrangement of the body structures. Okay. Starting from unicellular up to multicellular organisms, we have various kinds of respiratory surfaces. And these respiratory surfaces, their function is just to create a connection with the environment, to create a connection with the environment and allow the passage of gases across. Some of the gases are going to come in, some of the gases are going to come out, and allow the process of gases transfer across. Okay, now let me go to the slide share again, and let me open the slide share for you people, then we will come back to this slide again. Properties of an efficient respiratory surface is the main topic. What are respiratory surfaces? I am going to give you the definition of a respiratory surface. We will be discussing some common examples. I will be naming the common examples. We are not going to go into the detail of the common examples. Then what are respiratory gases? I have already told you that carbon dioxide and oxygen are the main respiratory gases that are going to be discussed in this process. A respiratory surface is any membrane in a living organism across which the exchange of respiratory gases can take place from the environment and be transported through the body. A respiratory surface is any membrane in a living organism across which the exchange of respiratory gases can take place from the environment and be transported through the body. Some common examples of respiratory surfaces are gills of fish, skin of amphibia, alveoli of humans, etc. We have many examples. Some examples. Single-celled organisms, the respiratory surface is the cell membrane. We can see the exchange of the respiratory gases. These are the two respiratory gases. This is a raw material of the metabolic processes, and this is a byproduct of the metabolic processes, as I have told you. Then oxygen and carbon dioxide, again, through the epidermis, a highly vascularized epidermis, and this is amphibia. Through the skin is a respiratory surface. Then these are echinoderms. The epidermis of echinoderms is the respiratory surface. Then we see insects. In the insects, the respiratory surface is the tracheal system, which is embedded deep down into the body of insects. This, and you can see, okay, all of these respiratory systems, these respiratory surfaces, they are exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. Then in fish, the main respiratory surface in fish is the gills, and the gills are highly supplied with blood vessels. And then the alveoli in mammals. These are some common examples of respiratory surfaces. What is a good respiratory surface? This is a short question in which you have to write all this that I have told you before this, and including the slide also. Basically, a good respiratory surface must have 5 basic characteristics. Number 1, it should be thin. Number 2, it should be well ventilated. Number 3, it should be highly vascularized, that is, it should have a good blood supply. Number 4, it should be moist. And number 5, it must have a large surface area. Now let us go back to the board. First of all, a respiratory surface must be thin. A respiratory surface must be thin. Let me just draw a sketch over here to show you. We have one surface which is like this. And we have one surface which is like this. Now, gases have to pass across these. For gases to pass across this surface, it is going to be very, very easy because it is very thin. It is not made up of many layers. And this is going to be the second situation in which the gases, they have to pass through this membrane. And in this membrane, how are they going to pass through? They are going to have to force themselves into this layer, which is going to be very difficult, and they will be unable to pass through this thick layer because the gases can pass through the thin layer much easily as compared to the thick layer. We can say that a thin boundary is easier than a thick boundary. If, for example, we have some gases passing through like this, and we have gases also passing out, it's going to be very easy. But here, the gases will just get stuck. They will not be able, maybe one odd number will pass through, but the rest will not. So the first characteristic, that respiratory surface must be thin, just so that the gases can pass through very, very easily. Now, the next characteristic, that the respiratory surface should be having a large surface area. Let me draw another sketch. A large surface area. Large surface area means, now this is a block. This block is exposed to various kinds of agents from all sides. It is exposed from here. This surface is exposed from here, from here, from here. Taraf say it is exposed. It is exposed from all the sides, and the gases are connecting it very well. Okay, the gases are reaching, and the surface is quite well exposed. Now this is a block. Now this block, it is a very thick block, but however, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides exposed. Okay. Now, instead of this block, if we have a block of, we extend this block and we bring all these cells in a straight line, and then we get a structure of this size. Now, the same number of cells, for example, maybe 20, 50, 80, 100 cells in this block have been brought into a straight line. Now, all the cells will be exposed. This is a large surface area. More of the cells are exposed to the exterior. So it means that now more of the gas is going to be able to pass through. We have gases that can pass through. Sorry for the overwriting on the board. We have gases that can pass through. Now this is the meaning of a large surface area. The gases have a more surface to touch and a more surface to enter. This is a large surface area, okay, on which we have gases which can easily pass across and pass through, because the number of cells in the block have been pulled and extended into a straight line arrangement. This is what happens in nature, where active surfaces are very thin and they do not have a large number of cells, and they do not have a large number of boundary in them. Then the next point is that the respiratory surface must be moist. The respiratory surface must be moist because respiratory gases must dissolve in the respiratory surface before passing across. The respiratory gases will not pass across, will not diffuse through any dry surface. That is why when we observe the respiratory surface, we have a substance which is known as a surfactant, which is present in the respiratory surface. This surfactant, it is actually a reduced surface tension of water. It contains some materials in which the surface tension has been reduced, and materials can easily dissolve in it, and then they can diffuse across the membrane. It is very important for a respiratory surface to be moist, because without the moisture, the material will not be, the gases will not be able to pass through. A moist respiratory surface has a special chemical, a special agent, which is known as a surfactant, which has a very, very reduced surface tension. And then in that, the gases dissolve very easily and then diffuse across the membrane very, very easily. Then a respiratory surface must be highly vascularized. Let me make one thing very clear, that our respiratory system is closely connected with the blood system. Now, if, for example, this is the alveolus, This alveolus has to transfer blood, absorb oxygen, and the oxygen has to be transferred to the different parts of the body. Now, these alveoli are present in the chest cavity. This alveolus must be surrounded by blood capillaries so that the exchange oxygen can be transferred to different parts of the body. The same is the case with the skin in amphibia. The same is the case with the gills of fish, that the respiratory surface, it must be highly vascularized. The respiratory surface must be thin. The respiratory surface must be moist. The respiratory surface must have a large surface area. The respiratory surface must be highly supplied with, richly supplied with blood vessels. It should be highly vascularized. Then the last point is that the respiratory surface must be well ventilated. If we have all the required characteristics, but we do not have oxygen or we do not have carbon dioxide, then what is the use of all these characteristics? If we have we have a moist respiratory surface, we have a large surface area respiratory surface, we have a well vascularized respiratory surface, we have a thin respiratory surface, but we are closed inside a vacuum where there is no oxygen, then no breathing is going to take place, no exchange is going to take place. Well ventilated respiratory, well ventilation for respiratory surface is very, very important. Because of this, the oxygen and the carbon dioxide supply is going to be easily exchanged, and we will always have a fresh supply of carbon dioxide. Now, this is all for the topic today. We will be back to the presentation. Let us see the presentation once more, and then I will be closing the class. What is a good respiratory surface? It is basically a good respiratory surface must have 5 basic characteristics. It should be thin. We have already discussed it. It should be well ventilated. It should be highly vascularized. That is, it should have a good supply of blood. It should be moist, and it should have a very, very large surface area. This is all for the lecture today. If you have any questions, do contact me, do drop the message for me so that I can answer your questions. Your questions are welcome. See you next time.